He was the most powerful CEO of America's top IT company. Everything was going as planned that day, until the biggest issue emerged. The interpreter was gone, and across the table the Arabian prince was growing impatient. $500 million was on line. In the corner of the room stood Eli, a maid, reeking the smell of cleaning solution. Nobody had spare time to notice the poor girl. But at that moment, with the CEO's reputation online, she did the impossible. No one saw it coming. Then what happened next changed everything. It was 9:55 a.m. Guards were securely guarding a huge door. No press reporters, no office staff dared nearby, except for Eli. She was on her regular cycle of cleaning the boardroom hall. Behind the guarded doors sat the top tycoon of America, George Buskett, CEO of Unicorn IT, in a rich gray suit and polished shoes, palms starting to sweat, fingers curling. He couldn't afford any mistake. Not today. On the opposite side were 3 Arabians. Among them was the prince, calm, composed, traditional, perfect in everything except for English. They had a deal on call before meeting, a fluent Arabic translator. Without one, the deal would be over before it began. Everything in the room was flawlessly arranged, except for the one missing piece, the translator. George grinded his teeth. "Where's the translator?" "Sir, there is a problem." The manager whispered in his ear. He added, "He said he won't be able to make it. He is stuck in traffic. How can he leave us hanging like this right now? We can't risk this." George ordered his managers to call every agency in the city and yelled at 2 managers for incompetency. No luck. No Arabic interpreters were available for today. The Arabs were already sharing glances. Behind those glass door meeting halls, she was always invisible. No greetings or exchanged smiles with any co-workers. Always looked down or yelled at. Nobody was interested in her last name. No one cared. But she knew she could stop the deal from booming. She took a deep breath but didn't move, because that room wasn't just any ordinary conference space. That place could entirely diminish her presence. George pressed on his temples and sighed. "We can't save it." Then Eli stepped in. Nobody gave a damn about her. Eli held the towel in her hands, but her eyes were on George, the man who had never noticed her presence, the man whose entire life revolved around his money, his authority, and fame. While George's team pressed their temples sweating in that AC room, the prince muttered something low to the others. His tone grew impatient. Eli hesitantly took a step, then paused. This could change everything, either for good or bad. These were the kind of places where she was supposed to stay silent. Nobody knew she studied languages before life forced her to drop out. Her father had been a language professor in Arab once upon a time, but an ill-fated accident took his life, and she was stripped of her privileges ever since. George was visibly shaken. He knew this deal was doomed. Then Eli stepped closer. "Sir, I can translate if you'd like." George's personal assistant, Betty, stifled a laugh. George turned around. "You? Translate Arabic? You are a maid, right?" "Yes, sir. But I'm also fluent in Arabic and Gulf accents. My father used to be a language professor in Dubai." The Arabs exchanged glances. The prince said something while looking at the papers. Eli responded smoothly in perfect Arabic. Smiles replaced the tension in their faces. All their faces lit. "You must be joking." George blinked. Eli looked at him without any fear. "No, but you will be if this is not addressed urgently." He didn't respond. Pride didn't want petty help, but the stakes were too high to cling on to his man ego. He gave a faint nod. "Sit and make it count." Eli walked to an empty chair. The damp cloth was still on her hand. At that moment, everyone finally realized she was not just there to clean. Her greeting was really smooth. Eli spoke, her voice calm and steady. Not a single stumble, not a pause, just a detailed explanation. "Mr. Zafar says he has a flight to catch, but if proper communication isn't possible, he prefers to postpone the meeting." The tone was furious, but she gave a soft translation. "Tell him we're ready. He won't have to wait." Eli relayed the message with a soothing voice. One of the prince's agents raised an eyebrow and replied as if trying to test her. Eli answered just as easily. She explained things better. She calmed everyone down. She even spotted a small mistake in their papers, a really important one, and fixed it right then and there. Didn't even blink. George just stared. He was amazed. This wasn't luck anymore. This was real skill. She knew exactly what she was doing. Over by the door, Betty crossed her arms. She watched Eli hard. Her look was sharp. Every time the foreign men praised Eli in their own language, Betty got more upset. She couldn't understand a word. George leaned close, his voice low. Did he really say that? Yes, Eli replied. He liked how clear your plan was. But he wants to change that part about who owns the ideas. You understood that? George asked, surprised. Yes, sir, Eli said. I understand more than you might believe, Mr. Busket. Something changed in George's eyes then. It wasn't just a surprise. It wasn't a pity. It was heavier than that. Respect. Maybe, just maybe, the first small feeling of being ashamed. After that, the meeting flowed. The tight feeling in the room vanished. Those investors who were so impatient before, they leaned in, interested. They started smiling. They even laughed. One man even offered Eli a bottle of water. A small thing, but it meant something. A sign of respect. Eli said no, thank you. Kindly, but firm. She wasn't there for a break, not then. 2 hours later, the deal was done. The men stood up. They shook George's hand. Eli translated their last words smoothly. They say they trust you now, sir, and they thank me. Her voice was calm. George nodded, a short, tight nod. He was still taking it all in. The investors walked out. Soon the room was empty, except for George. He stayed in his chair, just sat there, staring into space. Eli picked up her little notepad. That cleaning cloth she always had still lay beside it. Where? George started, his voice low. Where did you learn to do that? She didn't smile, just gave her an answer, plain and simple. Life taught me, Mr. Busket, and the quiet. The quiet in rooms where folks look right past you, where they expect nothing. He stayed silent, truly silent. For the very first time, George Busket found he had no words at all. In the corner, hidden from sight, Betty was glaring silently. She wasn't planning to stay silent for long. The next morning, the office had strange air. Something in the air had shifted. There were whispers around, glances, an uneasiness. Eli showed up early, but with quite enthusiasm this time. But this time, people noticed her. Betty stood waiting. Good morning, Eli, she said in a bitterly sweet voice. Good morning, Miss Betty, Eli answered. Betty smirked. Must have felt nice, being the star for once. Eli smiled. Sometimes that's all it takes. One moment to change everything, but only if you've earned it. Betty's face scrunched. She said nothing more, just turned and walked away, her sharp heels tapping like warning. Later that day, George called Eli into his office. His voice sounded different, softer. She stepped in. He was looking a lot different than his usual self. This time, his tie hung loose, and he looked tired. I spoke with their team, he said quietly. They were impressed and want you at the next meeting officially. Eli raised her eyebrow. As a translator? He gave a small smile. As the company's international representative, the face of our new partnership. She didn't answer right away. She sat down, her hands resting in her lap. And your team? You think they'll accept that? George let out a breath. They'll have to. No choice. Eli studied him for a moment, calm, steady. Do you trust me, or are you just trying to save your deal? For a second, he didn't speak. He just looked at her, gave his thought a second. Maybe both, he admitted. She nodded slowly. I'll do it, but I have a condition. He leaned forward. Yes, go ahead. No more Maid uniforms, she said softly, and I don't get ignored. George smiled, an honest smile. Deal. Eli stood up. She left the office with a quiet smile on her face. But not everyone was happy about Eli's rise. Betty had been observing all that. A cunning plan, maybe. Something was waiting for Eli. Soon, she whispered to herself. Let's see how smart you are this time. On the next meeting, Eli sat with the tycoons with grace. But outside, Betty had a plan. She sent the transcripts. A small smirk curled on her lips. She thought Eli would be done for this time. Meanwhile, the meeting was already in full swing. Miss Eli, one of the older men, greeted her with a gentle voice. It is a joy to see you again. Eli returned the greeting in a calm and graceful voice. Eli translated, guided, explained, each word careful, confronting both the parties. But then something caught her eye, a major fault in the transcript. That could ruin the whole deal. She looked up, her voice steady but serious. Mr. Zafar, with respect, there's a mistake in this clause. George leaned forward, concerned. What kind of mistake? Her eyes didn't waver. This line would give Unicorn IT full control over any patents made overseas. That wasn't what we agreed on, and it doesn't match the English version. A chill ran through the room. The investors began whispering in Arabic, concern flickering in their eyes. George was stunned. Are you sure? I'm sure. Eli said firmly, "but I can fix it, right here, right now." George nodded without hesitation. Eli turned to the investors and spoke with gentle honesty, explaining the error, clarifying the true intention. She didn't just save the deal, she saved their trust. When it was over, the oldest investor placed his hand on the table and smiled kindly. "You don't work for him," he said softly. "He works because you are here." George chuckled under his breath, and in that moment he knew it was the truth. 3 days later, the deal was done. Signed, sealed. Unicorn IT was finally stepping into the Middle East market with strength, with trust, and with one woman no one had seen coming, Eli. But inside the walls of the company, the air had changed. You could feel it. Eli no longer walked like the forgotten maid. She moved through those glass doors with quiet dignity, wearing her new badge. Eli Brown, International Market Manager. Her steps were soft but steady. And this time, people saw her. They didn't look through her anymore. Some smiled, some whispered, others stared, unsure how to react to the woman they used to ignore. Not everyone clapped. Not everyone was kind. But Eli didn't need their applause. She had already changed the story. At 3:17 in the afternoon, George's voice came softly through her office intercom. "Eli, could you come to my office for a moment?" She rose from her chair, calm, unhurried. When she entered, she found him standing by the window, papers in his hands, his face different somehow, less polished, more real. He turned to her, his voice gentle. "The investors are setting up a new research hub in the Gulf. They've asked for you personally. They want you on site for the first 3 months, meetings, strategy, all of it. They trust you, Eli. You've become the bridge." She didn't speak right away. She studied him, her eyes steady, her heart quiet. "In person?" she asked softly. "Not virtual?" He nodded. "In person. They don't want the company. They want you." For a moment, she just stood there, the weight of it all settling on her shoulders. The girl who used to scrub floors, now the key to the company's future. But she lifted her chin, calm, grounded. "Are you offering me this because it's good business?" she asked. "Or because you finally see me?" George's gaze didn't waver. He stepped closer. His voice dropped to a near whisper. "Both," he said. "Both." Something shifted between them. A softness, a respect that hadn't been there before. She gave the smallest nod. "I'll do it," she said, "but my terms still stand." He smiled, real this time, warm, honest. "No uniform," he said. "No back door. You have my word." She nodded again, this time slower. This time not as the maid, but as the woman she was always meant to be. When Eli stepped back into the hall, the marble still shone, the painting still hung, the whispers still danced along the walls. But her footsteps were different now. They echoed with purpose, with quiet pride. She no longer carried a cleaning rag. She carried her own name. And far away, somewhere behind closed doors, old jealousies still stirred. But Eli didn't look back. Not this time. Not ever again. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that remind us of the kindness still alive in this world. Tell us in the comments, have you ever witnessed an act of kindness that changed everything? And where in the world are you listening from? We love hearing from you. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep listening.